Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles.
We are going to study the prophecies of the prophet Amos. And it is an amazing book. It's 9 chapters. I will just tell you that I have a feeling that what happened to me the first time I taught this, that was in the early 1970s, mid-1970s, to a class at Los Angeles Hebrew High School. It was an amazing class. I had about 15 students. And when I talked about teaching this class, I said, I got to have the best because this is going to be a college level class. This is not a high school level class. So I had 15 really great students, and I could have actually taught the class in Hebrew, but one student said she would be uncomfortable. So wow. I actually taught it in English, but we read the text in Hebrew. Anyhow, it was supposed to be, hi Bobby, it was supposed to be a 1-semester class on Amos. And the second semester, it was supposed to be selected haftarot, again, prophets, but the haftorahs. So it was a great concept. I loved it. Well, guess what? Amos took a whole year. So, it's a fascinating book. It is. Well, we'll talk more. I have notes which I'm going to work through now. All right. Anyhow. When did Amos live? Amos lived in the middle of the 8th century BCE. There are some people who date him around 860, others date him around 852. I'm not going to get into that argument because he didn't leave us any biographical information. So we don't know exactly when he was born, when he died, etc. But based upon the people who are associated with his name historically, and based upon what we can figure out in terms of how he sees what's going on, that's reasonable. Okay, and he was born in the town of Tekoa, and Tekoa is in the southern kingdom of Judah, in the Judean hills southeast of Beit Lechem. And now I'm going to show you a map of the prophets, where they came from, okay? And if you had doubts, I guarantee you now there's a lot of profit to taking this class. All right, so here we go. Okay, so we'll start here at the bottom, all right? So there is Amos, right?
Lift it up a little more, please. I don't see Tekoa. There it is.
All right.
Down in the bottom middle.
Squares. The prophets' names. Micah, Micha, also about that same time.
Yes.
A little bit later.
Move it towards your right.
Micha is around the same time as Isaiah. Okay? Well, we're getting to them next. There's Isaiah in Jerusalem. Got it?
Now move it to your right. Move it more to your right and up. There's Tekoa. We just saw Tekoa a second ago. You got to go more to your right.
Oh, the camera's up here. That's right. Yeah. Wait, you know what? Hold on. I can see it. 1 second. Sorry.
You're going to hold it not so close to the.
All right, here we go.
Hold it a little further away.
That's great. Okay, Amos is in Tekoa. You can see that very clearly.
Yeah, there's Amos, Tekoa. There's Micha.
There's Isaiah and Ezekiel.
Yeah,
that's right. And then we have Hosea. Yes.
Yeah, right.
I'm going north. And there is Eliyahu.
Elisha's not
Elisha.
It's Elisha. Oh.
There's Eliyahu.
All right, so Eliyahu and Elisha. And then way up at the top is Nebuch or there's Jonah. All right. So you
How
see,
did Yonah get so far inland if he got swallowed by the whale?
yeah, anyway, but you see, so Amos is in the southern part, right? And the interesting thing, of course, is
And
that
is
prophets
Tekoa in disputed territory?
today, no,
Yes.
it
not
is.
disputed territory. Come on.
Disputed territory. Excuse me, that's Israel.
Well, it's in Judah. I don't know. The boundary lines are not clear here. Yeah, probably is. Yeah,
So it's not accessible to Israelis.
I don't know.
It's not accessible to Jews now.
I don't know. Anyway,
Rabbi,
yes.
I was trying to figure out from the type font whose map it was. Doesn't quite look like Sir Martin Gilbert. Is it Encyclopedia Judaica?
No, I just pulled it off of a website.
Oh, so it's a random.
No,
if we wanted to find it, we could search. Okay.
Yes. You just map of the prophets map. Boom, you'll get a bunch of them. But these are relatively. I'll tell you, this is. I forgot where it's from. Some Christian site, I think. Anyway, it's not. I mean, the best atlas is the Macmillan Bible Atlas. It's done through Carta in Israel. There's an English one, a Hebrew one. And, I mean, of course, they have to update it every decade because there's always new information that comes in. But it's really terrific because it brings texts from the Bible, historical background, maps, detailed stuff. It's excellent. So that's again, Macmillan Bible Atlas. Excellent book source. All right. Anyhow, so he does most of his prophesying, however, basically all of it, in the northern kingdom of Israel. Okay? And you got to realize they're two separate kingdoms, independent. We'll talk more about that. Okay? In fact, at one point later on, when we get to chapter 7, and he's arguing with Amaziah the Kohen in Bethel, and, basically Amaziah says, why don't you go back to where you came from? You don't belong here, right? You're from Judah. Get out, leave. Anyway, so, they resented him being there, especially because of what he was saying. All right, anyhow, but it's interesting. Of course, it was there. It's at that time, under King Jeroboam II, that the geographic extent of Israel, of the northern kingdom, was at its fullest. Okay, and the southern kingdom, Judah, right, was a weak partner at that time. The relations, if you read the Bible, read the Book of Kings, which of course is all from the perspective of the south. It was put together in Jerusalem, but nonetheless there are references in it, of course, to things in the north. But at this time, Judah was like a weak partner to Israel. Sometimes they were at each other's throats, or they were at war with each other with other nations around. Okay, but at this time they were together. But anyhow, all right. So how strong was the northern kingdom? All right. So now, I think I'm just going to separate these. There we go. Okay, so there is the northern kingdom of Israel. You see it?
Yeah.
Okay, and there is the southern kingdom of Judah. Now, geographically, you can see there's a lot of land down here, isn't there? But there are
can't see the southern part.
And beside this is all desert. But this is not desert. And as you know, if you've been to Israel, this is the lush part of the land.
Right.
This was the wealthiest part. It had the most population, the strongest army. And you can see here that the northern extent at this time actually was up here. All right. It went up as far north as Lebo Hamat. Okay. Which today would be somewhere either in Syria. Yeah. Right. In Syria. Syria. And here is, you see, this is Sidon, right? Tyre and Sidon are on the coast. All right, I'm gonna go through here. So here we have the different countries that the prophet talks about. All right. So here you have here. This is Damascus, right over here. You see number 1.
Yeah.
You see that? I'll say
Yeah.
that's Aram Damascus. Those are the Arameans. All right. They're not Canaanite oriented. They're not. I mean, well, Canaan is no longer. But I mean, they are that's the northernmost people that Amos will talk about. Then number 2 is down here, and that's the Philistines. Okay, and he will talk about Ashdod. All right,
Lift it up a little bit.
okay,
Thank you.
got that? Okay.
Perfect.
Then over here we have Tzor and Sidon, but mostly Tzor. This is the Phoenicians.
Mm.
The Phoenicians. And okay, now you see what he's doing is these are the most extreme, and slowly he's going to get, except over here. Well, no, the Arameans are up here. That's the furthest away. You've got the Philistines here. Then you have the Tyre and Sidon over here. And then the number 4, we're going to jump down south. That is, Edom. Oh, good old Edom. The Edomites. Okay, now we're getting Mishpacha, right? Who was Edom? And who was the
Esav.
Huh?
Wasn't that Esav?
Esav is Edom. That is correct. So Mishpacha, we're talking about Mishpacha here. All right, and then so that's number 4. Number 5 is then we have Ammon and Moab. Who are Ammon and Moab?
Were they Lot's children?
Yes, Lot's, exactly. Lot's 2 sons. Yes, Ammon and Moab. But he had daughters. They were the products of the relations that took place. Remember, the 2 daughters think that they're the only people left in the world. So they get him drunk and they have sex with him. It's an incestuous relationship. And these are the 2 mamzerim who came out.
Yeah, but then that makes them both sons and grandsons, technically, says the genealogist.
Grandsons.
But also sons.
They're sons.
And grandsons. They're both.
No, they're grandsons because he slept with the daughters.
Yeah, but if they were his own
sons,
these are the sons.
They're sons on the paternal line and their grandsons on the maternal line.
My God.
No.
What are we talking? Let's talk about Amos.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, they're grandsons. So
all right, yes, I agree. All right, then finally, the last of his secondary targets is number 7, which is Judah. So you see, he starts far away and gets close. That's the style. That is what he's doing. But his main target, of course, is Israel. All right. So it gives you an idea of the layout of the land, and that's significant. Only the reason why I decided to do this is because ultimately these are the nations that have, Israel and Judah both had to deal politically and militarily at different points in times with these nations. It was back then, it was not always peaceful. There was always some little squabble going on. Okay. So that's what you get a sense of. This was we always think Israel, Judah, it ain't just them. Okay, Bobby.
Is he speaking to the people in Aramean, and are we reading a Hebrew translation?
No.
But he's speaking, or is he?
No,
or is the lingua franca Hebrew?
No, he is. What he's saying, this prophecy takes place in Beit El, in Judah, in Israel. He's speaking in Hebrew. He's talking about these different countries. Okay. I
So-
mean, in other words, he's making prophecies about them as if he were, but he's not.
When does Aramean become the language that's commonly spoken?
Oh, that's Aramaic.
Aramaic, no.
Oh, Aramaic. It's
Yeah.
not the same. It's not the language of the Arameans.
I don't think so. It may be a spin-off, but I'm not a linguist to that degree.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. I mean,
Actually, Aramaic is still spoken today.
oh, we know that. Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
another subject. But yes, it is in a few areas in the world. Yes. Yes.
Up around Modesto, there's a large group.
All right. Okay. Now, anyhow, where are we? Yes. So in chapter 1 and the beginning of chapter 2, he goes through his, if you will, curses of all 7 of these entities, including ending up with Judah. And because he finds that each one of them lived sinfully, they did things that were horrible. And because of that, they are all going to be punished. That's the blanket statement. Each one has a kind of a, sometimes they're similar. There's a certain, and they talk, you'll see there are certain elements to these curses where they're shared with other of these nations, sort of like tropes that he repeats. Okay? All right, so that's it. All right. Now, the number 7. Of course, we all know that's, and I'm talking about this now because style and argument in this book are very pronounced and very significant. Okay? And you've got to keep, that's why I'm going to get into this in somewhat depth, because it's written very conscientiously. It's composed conscientiously. Okay? Because he was an expert in rhetoric. Okay? We know about rhetoric. Remember, the great rhetoricians were in Greece and Rome, and it was part of the curriculum in the schools of Greece and Rome. Okay? But the fact is, rhetoric was used in the Middle East at this time and before that. And we'll talk about that a little bit. And there are all kinds of techniques and devices that are used. So you will see that, of course, 7 is a number that has significant universal stuff. I was just reading something earlier today about the number 7 it pops up dealing with a non-Israelite country in pre-Israelite times in the Middle East. Okay, I mean, the number 7, it was used for all kinds of different things. Of course, in the Jewish tradition, it is a powerful number, right? Bereshit, right? Chapter 1, beginning of chapter 2, the creation of the world. Brit Milah is what day?
8.
Right. So it's 7 plus 1. 7 days for the creation, so to speak.
Right.
And it's the day after. Okay. And by the way, this is what I'm about to say has been a controversial issue. Is there anything physiological related between circumcision on the 8th day and science? And so from time to time, you will hear arguments. The latest piece I have heard was from 2019, where somebody noted that it's on the 8th day of a newborn's life that vitamin K is present, and that's required for blood coagulation on the 8th day.
Interesting.
That's the
Actually,
news.
Rabbi, I had heard that a long time before 2019, but it may have been that they just came out with more data to support it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nah.
I don't know. Yeah. Guys, Bobby, you're a doctor. Have you heard about that?
Well, I don't know exactly what day vitamin K appears, so I can't comment on that.
All right, thank you. You're an honest man. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to get into that argument. From now, somebody might come back and say that's a bunch of you-know-what, so forget about it. Anyway, but, all right. Now, you tell me, where else do we find the number 7?
Sheva Brochus after wedding.
Yeah, okay, well, that's late. Think early.
early.
7 Noahide laws.
7? No.
They're 9.
No, Noahide laws.
Kibbutz,
9.
Rabbi,
They're more than that.
Kibbutz
No.
Ha'ai.
9.
No,
They went 7
yes,
times,
that's right. 7 Noahide laws. Yes, you're right. Yes.
but they went 7
What?
times around the city eye. They went 7 times around the
Oh,
walls.
7 times, yes, and they meet right in the around the Mizbeach. Yes.
With Beersheba
Yes,
will count?
Sheva mitzvot b'nei Noach. Yes, you're right. Yes.
Rabbi, Beersheba will count?
Huh?
Beersheba?
Oh, Be'er. Well, yeah. Oh, no, no. By the way, no. That has to do with Shavuot, with an oath.
Yeah.
Shavuot. Yeah,
But-
that's different.
But by the way, I will comment that when I did do circumcisions as an intern, we did them on the second day of birth. So I doubt if the vitamin K thing is really relevant.
And then they never had any trouble.
Well, I did once, but that didn't have to do with that.
Okay.
We
But
All right.
I
we did
imagine
them
if-
around
if,
that
if
too.
vitamin K didn't appear till day 7 or 8, they wouldn't have done them on day 2.
We did them around day 2 just to get them out of the hospital.
Yeah.
Maybe that.
All right.
Mother still has to be in the hospital, right?
All right. Yeah. Off subject. I'm gonna be
Off subject is right.
okay.
Well, I mean, the bride has to go. The
What?
bride has to go around the groom 7 times, but
Yeah,
again,
but that's late.
yeah.
Not the earliest 7 days of creation.
How many? Well, we said days of creation. How many days is Pesach?
7.
How many days is Sukkot?
7.
7, actually, right? Because Shmini Atzeret is a separate day. Okay, right? 7. So the holidays are 7. Yes, exactly. And what else is 7? Biblically important. 7. Every 7th year is
Mita.
Mita, right? Exactly. When the land lies fallow. And after how many years? In what year of a slave of an indentured servant do they go free?
7.
And also Jacob was allowed to marry Rachel. Well, actually,
No, 7. Right? Yes.
Is it?
7 days after Leah. Yes, exactly. Yes,
And isn't the Omer 7 times 7?
exactly. Plus 1. That's Shavuot. Yes. The Omer is 7 times 7. Right. 7. Yeah. And Shemitah, Yovel, the Jubilee year is year 50 after 7 cycles of 7 years.
Right, exactly.
So 7 is all over the place. All right. So what does that have to do with what we're going to read? Well, it turns out that these 7 curses, the rhetorical beginning of it is for 3 sins of X, and for 4 I will not forgive. What's 3 plus 4?
7, obvious.
And it's a rhetorical statement, which means if I'm not going to forgive for 3, how much more so not 4, right? And that these are 4 bad things, without always being enumerated. But the point is, this is all use of rhetoric. These are all, different formulations. But here, no, I'm sorry. This is all use of 7s. But here, it's used for purposes of impact on the listener, presumably the crowd that was listening to Amos's preaching in Beit El as he begins his prophecy. All right, you'll hear when we get into it. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But it's an amazing process here, and what he's doing here is he uses the 7 nations, emphasizing sinfulness and horrible consequences. Okay, and the thing is, of course, he's in a temple or at the temple in Beit El, in the area of the temple, which of course is a sacred place. And these people are used to hearing 7 as a sacred number, right? So, they're saying, so he's using it, and they're saying, oh my God, listen to him. He's using 7 with all these curses, right? And he's in the northern kingdom doing this. right? And so finally, and who does he finish up with? Judah. Very close, but also sometimes the enemy. Like the guys in the north have no love lost for the south and vice versa. Okay? So he's setting them up for something, because what he's doing is he goes through all this sinfulness of 7 and 7. And so you are now one of the people from the north in Bethel. And what are you thinking when he finishes with Judah? He says, they're thinking, oh my God, those horrible 7, he's finished. We're not included. Thank God, because we're not sinful. And then what does he say? For the 3 sins of Israel and for 4, etc. He lays it right into them. So it's called reversal, where you're taking a momentum that is building and building and building, and you're talking about all these horrible things that are going to happen, and the people standing around say, oh, that's not us. No, that's not us. No. And finally, what does he do? He completely turns the table and says, guys, you too. In fact, you're the worst.
Aye.
Okay, so it's an amazing, it's a setup. And that's what rhetoric does. It's using words to create emotions, expectations, surprises, emphasis, all kinds of different things. And he was a very, very well-trained rhetorician. Now, you'll find a lot of this in the Bible. The book of Proverbs has a lot of things that do this, among others. Anyhow, all right, so it's almost as if Amos's world, the way he sees the world around him, it's upside down due to chaotic sinfulness. So he's going to use an upside down version of number 7 in order to respond to the upside down chaos that's going on in the world around. And that's what he does. And it's no surprise that the vast majority of all of the things that he talks about is what we would call in Hebrew, Bein Adam L'Chavero, sins of one human being against another. Many of the other prophets, now some of them have this. I mean, Isaiah's got a lot of this stuff, and Jeremiah has some, and others do. But the big bugaboo for most of the other prophets is Israelite idolatry, okay? And that was the reason for the destruction of the temples, both the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, according to something like the book of Kings, the other prophets, was because of idolatry, which we now know from archaeology was a reality. Right? Their monotheism was not a pure monotheism for a long time. Okay? All right, so but Amos barely touches on it. And that's why I found it to be so interesting. Because today we as human beings tend to be more oriented to our relations with people than with God. If we are extremely pious people, yes, we worry a lot about our relations with, okay? But, I'm sure I'm not going to lay a groundwork for talking about how you should relate to God. That's another subject. Talk to Elliot Dorff about that one. But in terms of our regular daily concerns, there are how we behave, how other people behave, reward and punishment, not in the world to come, but in the here and now, right? So, he's very modern in that regard. And it's, to me, it's refreshing. If you read Bible a lot, it's refreshing, because especially after studying Psalms, where they're talking to God all the time, right? And as we know, sometimes they get very angry at God, which is interesting to hear. But, it's this way. Amos is this way. And so that's why I really wanted to deal with it. Okay, so this is my brief introduction. Any questions or comments? Okay, yes, Tybal.
I feel as if I missed the assignment to do some reading first. Were we supposed to read part of the book of Amos first?
No, I made no assignments. Now I will make. No, I hope that you have it. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Get your Bibles if you haven't.
Don't be clear.
I'm sort of assuming that you.
Yeah, we're right on it.
Yeah, that part I knew. It's just
No, I made no assignments. No. I can't because whom am I assigning? I don't have a class.
Well, you know, the groupies are going to be here.
But I don't want to say something to somebody and they'll say, "What the heck is he talking about?"
What?
I see. Yes, I know. I see who's here. Right. I should have done it. Sorry. Mea culpa. Okay.
Let's go.
All right. But we're now going to begin. Now we will begin reading. Okay. All right. Now let's even hear some very interesting little tidbits of the meaning of words. Okay. All right. So the Hebrew. Divrei Amos asher haya banotim mitekoa asher chazal Yisrael b'yimei Uzziah melech Yehuda u'b'yimei Yerovam ben Yoash melech Yisrael shnatayim lifnei hara'ash.
This is where now? Are you at
chapter 5?
Chapter 1, verse 1.
Oh, okay, great.
Chapter 1, verse 1. So these are the words of Amos, who was among the sheep herders from Tekoa, okay, who chazah. It is the Hebrew word to see, but it's primarily
the vision. He had the vision.
Visions, yeah, visions, yes. It's a and you can sometimes these are called chazon, which is a vision, right? It has to do with seeing. Okay, all right, Bert, I see your hand. Just a second. So he was a prophet on Al Yisrael. You see, regarding Israel during the days of King Uzziah Melech, the king of Judah, and Yerovam ben Yoash Melech Yisrael. Okay, so Uzziah was the king of Judah, and Yerovam the second was the king of Israel, 2 years before the earthquake, Ra'ash. Remember, Alav Shalom, Cantor Kellemer always, when he did, mi yichya, mi yamut, that, when it came, mi bara'ash, he would go, mi bara'ash. Yeah,
Rabbi?
Yes, all right. Okay, Bert.
Just quickly, I assume since this is written in the third person, Amos didn't write this.
Well, that's a good question. Okay, obviously, the first, yes, the redactor, someone put this in. Yeah, but it touches on a bigger question.
Do we know if it was contemporary to when he lived, or was it
around 750
years later, or 200 years later?
We don't know.
Oh, it was
we have no idea. No. The only person we know about, as far as I know, who actually had a scribe with him was Jeremiah. Baruch ben Neriah was his scribe. But we don't hear of anybody else with scribes. But here's the question. As you will see as we proceed, and now you're experts in poetry, there are a lot of poetic elements to prophecies, and you'll see this in Amos. Some of the same poetic structures that we saw in the poetry of Psalms, you will see here. And the question that I was asking myself was, did the prophets actually speak poetically? Or was this something, I mean, you think about it, that meant that they'd have to be doubly, their mind have to operate on 2 or 3 different levels simultaneously. Because very often these poetic structures have sounds. The poetry is in similar sounds, right? Use of similar words, how many words in each part of the sentence, all kinds of things that require a lot of thought. But at the same time, he's trying to get across a message that, he believes is coming from God. Now, I don't have an answer. And I'm not the only one who's asked that question. And I think it's almost impossible to answer, because the question is, did the words so obviously he was not reading a script. I mean, he was speaking here. Nowhere does it say by Tov, like with Moses. Moses wrote something. It says he wrote down the words of the covenant and he read it to the people. Okay, there it says so clearly. Shmot, chapter 24. That's what it says. But here it doesn't say. So the question is, were there people who listened to him and who were imbued, et cetera, who heard the main thrust of his arguments and who then wrote it down and captured all of that in thought out poetic statements because of the power of poetry. Also because poetry can be memorized because of repetition. Once you get the technique of the rhythm and the sounds, it's easier to memorize.
Easier.
Right? So, I mean, I don't know. And I'm looking to see, I found one article, the guy says, we basically, and it was a Bible scholar was writing this article, he said, we don't know. It could be they were extremely creative people, right, who could actually, off the top of their head, speak. Maybe even themselves, they had to create these structures in order to properly express the power of what God had told them. It could be.
God was speaking in poetry, possibly.
Well, very often well, again, that's the point. Did God speak? Did God do poetry?
God's a poet. Trust me. God's a poet.
All the time, Yeah, I mean, so I just threw it out because it was a question, All right, there, I let it out. Okay. All right, I saw some hands. Tybal had a hand up. Bobby, okay, Vered, 1 second. Okay, Tybal, then Bob, then Vered.
I have a question about the first word in the verse and the last word.
Yes.
The first word, because to me, it's an unusual locution. It's not Amos said, it's the words of Amos.
Yes.
And it's important to put it first. Is that question about the first word?
No.
Are we then supposed to think about the book of Devarim?
No.
It's words and words?
No. They're the same word. Words.
No, but I would have expected that the first word in all of this would be the word Amos, the name of the prophet, not the words of Amos. But okay, I can tell.
Hold on. Just random. I wasn't expecting the question, so I am not prepared. I'm going to turn right now to the beginning of the book of Isaiah, and let's see, what does it say? Okay, what does it say? Hello? Are you? I'm here now.
Well, because, you made us competitive. We have to be as good as your high school students.
Chazon Yeshayahu ben Amos. So there it says Chazon, the prophecy.
It's a word pair.
The vision. Okay. So here it says Divrei, the words of.
It's a word pair.
What?
It's a word pair. But the two words are put together. That's a grammatical thing.
Where's two words?
Of Amot. Huh?
Divrei Amos.
Divrei Amos. That's right. The words.
The word pair. They come together. They're grouped together, and that's why you've got the oh my God,
looking at the Divrei Amos. I see what you're saying. The tropes.
No, not the tropes. That's a grammatical pairing. It's like
he refers, Rabbi, to say that this is smichut form in grammar, like word pair. Dvarim shel Amos.
It's like saying
the word
the house of Barbara. The house of Barbara.
Okay, he knows.
All right, hold on. Shh. Yes. The answer, Tybal, is it's standard. You can play around with it, but it could be Divrei. I don't know. Look at the beginning of Jeremiah. It's going to be very similar.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So then my second question about earthquake.
I'm getting to that. Don't go any further.
I'll be back.
The whole section. Next page. I'm going to turn my page. All right. But I want to deal first with the word nokeh.
wanted to talk about it,
Oh,
Rabbi.
yes, go ahead. Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Vered, what?
Okay, so I wanted to talk about the word noked.
Yes, please do.
So
I have something to say also. Go ahead.
So it says, Divrei Amos, to answer table, actually just for this word, I would insert here the word maybe nevuah, like Divrei HaNevuah shel Amos ben Amos. Well, maybe it will please table. But we're talking about the word banokdim.
Yeah.
So there are two answers to this word. What does it mean, banokdim? One answer can be Noked is a shepherd, Ro'eh, like he's a shepherd from the city of Tekoa, from the place of Tekoa, which has a vision of Israel and so on. So that can be a shepherd. The other thing, if I remember the story of Lavan and Jacob, that it can be a type of sheep, that he was a shepherd on a specific type of sheep. There it says the word nekudim.
Well, that's from Nekudah.
No, it's not from Nekudah. It's from the story of Lavan.
No, I'm saying, but it's the same meaning of the Hebrew
The
Nekudah.
same meaning like Nekudah, like they had spots, that the sheep had spots.
I have an answer for you, okay? I
didn't ask a question. I just made the statement.
Oh, okay. And I have an answer to your statement.
Well, maybe.
Okay. Yes. The word noked in that form, okay, is only found two places in the Bible. It's almost a hapax. Remember a hapax legomenon? A word that appears only once. That's the term, hapax legomenon. This is not. This is twice. The second time is in Malachim Bet. All right.
Suk Dalet.
Yeah, Gimel Dalet regarding Mesha Melech Moab. All right. Now the reason why that's important, and it means a shepherd. The reason why that is important is because a lot of scholars assumed that Amos was poor because his target are the wealthy people in Bethel and Israel. Right, he's always after the wealthy people, okay? However, the interesting thing is, if Mesha, king of Moab, is also called a noked, you're going to call the noked a king, a poor shepherd? The fact that that word is used with a king implies not an impoverished type of a person, but a person who's gloriously wealthy. Now, nobody's arguing that Amos was necessarily gloriously wealthy. But on the other hand, there's another reason why, a couple of the reasons why he may not actually have been a poor person. Because later on, there's another term that's going to pop up where he calls himself a boker. And that is a hapax. A boker is a man who deals with bakar. And what's bakar? Cattle.
He's a cowboy.
Yeah, but he's a shepherd also. In other words, this is a guy who's got flocks of sheep and flocks of cattle. Cattle are very expensive to deal with. They eat a lot of food.
He's comfortable.
Yeah, the point is, the guy probably wasn't poor. And here again, the interesting thing is that another instance. There is an Akkadian use of that same root, nun kuf dalad. This is interesting. Some of these guys do a lot of digging, in parallel languages. So this is an Akkadian, has the same term. It's used for a chief priest, a Kohen Gadol, who is also the chief of the temple herds. And the same verb is used, the same noun is used for him. So the point, nakdus, nakadu, or something like that. Go ahead. Yes, Vered.
I read that that noked in Aramaic is somebody that is a shepherd of somebody else's cattle. and somebody else's sheep. In other words, he does it for somebody else, not for himself.
That was not mentioned in the sources that I looked at. So
well, it does.
Yeah, but a king would not be, if he's an okade, he's not looking after anybody else's stuff. That's not his job. And a high priest, unless other people would entrust them, maybe what it means to entrust, right? That actually other people, poor shepherds, would entrust that with them and they would be responsible for their care. But that doesn't make sense. So I don't know. That doesn't hold up with this. Anyhow, it's not clear. But I don't think, there's this tendency that if somebody criticizes a wealthy person, they're got to be poor. That's not necessarily the case. You can have a person who is well off or comfortable, as would be the case, because he also deals, you'll see later on, with trees. He tended certain kinds of trees that existed in the area of Tekoa. So, the guy was he owned property, he owned sheep, and so he probably wasn't poor.
He got by.
In fact, he knew because he wasn't so poor, he lived in places where there was wealth and he saw what was going on. Right? It wasn't him, poor person back then never walked into a fancy home. But you'll see this guy knows what's going on in fancy homes. He talks about what's in them. So he's been there. So I don't think he was poor. But again, it shows you every word has an interesting, wrinkle to it. And to fully understand it, you got to do a little digging. Okay. And I'm not saying everything I'm saying is the final. God is not talking to me right now. Don't get me wrong. Okay. Kodesh Baruch Hu is not. This is based upon what reading I've been able to do.
Rabbi,
all right. Now let's talk about the earthquake. This is an earthquake that people know a great deal about, it turns out, because they now have the technology to be able to determine about earthquakes centuries and many, many centuries later. All right, so this is the earthquake of 750 BCE. All right, so there are I'm reading the text that I pulled out. All right, so just listen to me. Widely separated archaeological excavations in Israel and Jordan contain late Iron Age architecture bearing evidence of a great earthquake. Masonry walls best display the earthquake, especially walls with broken ashlars, which is stones that are nice stones that are put over rough stones to make them look better. Walls with displaced lows of stones, walls still standing but leaning or hewed, and walls collapsed with large sections still lying course on course. Debris at 6 sites: Hatzor, Deir Allah, Gezer, Lachish, Tel Judea, and Judea, and Ein Haves, is tightly confined stratigraphically to the middle of the 8th century BCE, with dating areas of similar to 30 years. Biblical and post-biblical sources indicate a single regionally extensive earthquake in the year 750 BCE. The epicenter was north of present-day Israel, probably in Lebanon, as indicated by the southward decrease in degree of damage at sites in Israel and Jordan. A large area of the ancient kingdoms of Israel and Judah was shaken. The earthquake was at least 7.8 on the Richter scale, but likely was 8.2. That's a biggie.
Whoa.
The 8.2 event of 750 BCE appears to be the largest yet documented on the Dead Sea Transform Fault during the last 4 millennia. This severe geologic disaster has been linked historically to a speech delivered in the city of Beit El by a shepherd farmer named Amos of Tekoa. Amos' earthquake was synchronous with the introduction of seismic theophany imagery into Hebrew literature with the appearance of the day of the Lord eschatological motif, and and with the explosive emergence of writing prophets in Israel. Okay. So anyhow, now, okay, so that's the earthquake. And clearly its impact was so great that they timed the date of these prophecies, right, as 2 years before the earthquake. The earthquake. Now, obviously, Bert, going back to what you said, that's something that the redactor added in, right? Okay. But then now, Amos's own words are going to begin in just a minute, okay? Now, let me see what time it is. And the time is, okay. All right, we're doing okay. We're not going to finish the chapter tonight, I promise. All right, now, just by the way, what's Beit El?
Isn't that where Yaakov changed his name? Got his name changed, sorry. Wrestle with the...
Yaakov got his name changed. Yes, what else is there? Why is that important?
The house of God.
Isn't it that and Dan are the two places where the North put altars in competition with
Jeroboam the first put his 2 temples there. Yes.
Doesn't Beit El mean the house of God?
Yes, but beforehand they know that the place existed as a sacred site during pagan times, and that was called the house of El, because El was Baal's
generic
father.
God, right? A generic God.
Right, he was the chief god of the Canaanites at certain times. Yes, and so this probably was already a sanctified, pagan sanctified site. And when Yaakov comes in, he doesn't, he builds something on his own. You don't have any message specifically of anything else bad being there, but it probably was already there. Anyhow, and that is the place also where God formally carries the covenant of Abraham and Isaac down to Jacob, and where sacrifices regarding that are offered. So from that perspective, and obviously that is a tradition that comes down from the north. In other words, in terms of when that tradition was preserved. The southerners, in other words, from Judah, what did they think of Beit El? What was inside?
Upstart. It's an upstart place because things are only supposed to take place in Jerusalem.
Well, that's later, okay? Right. But Solomon, built the temple. Let's hold off. That's another thing. Yes. But even before that, remember, the reform was around 620. But even before then, that temple was destroyed somewhere around 720, the temple in Beit El. All right, so by the Assyrians. All right, so what else was there? What did Yeroboam put in the Holy of Holies of his 2 temples?
A golden calf, right?
Thank you. Yes, a golden calf in each one. Okay, that's what was there. And that was a defining element of their cult. Now, we don't, according to the Book of Kings, which is a product of the South, that's if you'll excuse my Yiddish, glut idolatry.
Yeah, exactly.
Pure and simple idolatry. Okay, there is the suggestion that is made currently. It may not be totally such, because there are images in the pagan world. It may be based on a pagan concept of the god standing on the back of a young bull. So it may have been for Hashem the equivalent of the seraphim, the angels in the temple in Jerusalem with their outstretched arms, which was God's throne. Or the angels in the prophecy of Ezekiel chapter 1, where these 4 beasts are the throne, the chariot of God. Okay, so angels serve that purpose in the south, golden calves in the north, and they were not to be worshipped. So we don't know how at what level the golden calves operated. Were they chariots or things on which God rode, or were they actual representations of God? Now, what we read in the story of the golden calf in the book of Exodus, chapter 32, what is it that the people say about the golden calf? Ela Elohecha Yisrael asher hotziucha me'eretz Mitzrayim. These are your gods who took you out of the land of Egypt. Okay. Now it's in plural form. There was only one golden calf at Sinai, right? Why does it say Ela? Well, is it possible that's an allusion backwards from the northern kingdom? In other words, if you're writing a story about the golden calf, you want to give a hint of two, because that's what there were up north. And they were pagan worship centers, even though the Israelites were the ones worshiping there. We don't know that for sure. But the fact is, in Exodus, the golden calf is considered by the people to be an embodiment of Hashem. That's what it says. That's a southern perspective, so it appears.
Well, I remember, Rabbi, just as an aside, my daughter went on a digs about 30 years ago, whenever she was in college, maybe more, through Harvard University. They had a dig near Ashdod, and they found Ashkelon. Okay, sorry. And they found an actual golden calf.
No, they're all over the place. No, the golden calf was a common feature of worship in Egypt, in Canaan.
Right. So
no, it's common. The young bull, one of the four animals on the four faces on the angels of Ezekiel, chapter 1. Right? The angels have four faces on their heads. A human, a lion, an eagle, and an ox. Okay? And what is the golden calf? A young bull, a young ox. That's really what it means, a young ox. Okay? So why are those four creatures there? The human we can understand. Why is a lion, an eagle, and a young bull on the heads of these? What do they represent?
Does the bull represent sacrifices?
Not here.
Lion much later is Judah.
What are those animals to the genre of creature to which they refer? A lion is the
king of the jungle.
King of the beasts, right?
An
eagle is the
he soars up
powerful bird, right?
Yeah.
And a bull is the most powerful four-legged animal. They didn't know from elephants.
Well, there's lions that are powerful too, but
lions existed in Eretz Yisrael all over the place.
Right.
But not elephants.
Why a bull and not a lion? I'm just, No,
all I'm saying is, though, that they're the four most powerful creatures are on the faces of these angels in the prophecy, in the vision of Ezekiel, okay?
Maybe
the golden calf, if you will, a young bull of some kind is on that angel. By the way, see the hand that's over there on my picture? That's because I'm waving my hand. It automatically pops up. You see it there? Can you see it? I see it.
Yes.
Goodbye. No, it'll go away. Don't worry. I'm not going to. Oh, here it's there's four hands right over there at the bottom. I can do that. Okay, fine. All right. All right. So that's Beit El, and that's where Amos was prophesying. It happens to be, and I checked this just last night. I went online and said distance between Jerusalem and Beit El. All right, now I give you the exact number right now. Are you ready? I know you've been waiting all evening for this.
Huh?
The exact is 29.5 kilometers, which is about 18.3 miles north of Jerusalem. That's pretty close, isn't it? Now, Yeravam, in the book of Kings tells us exactly why he built it there. You want to take a guess? It's at the southern end of his kingdom. You know what he says?
Is it to limit Jerusalem's growth?
What?
To limit the southern kingdom's growth?
Well, no, you're close, but you're very close so that people from the southern part of Israel won't go to the closest temple that they used to go to prior to in the days of Solomon in Jerusalem, right? Jerusalem is right around the corner. So he says instead of there being a temple around the corner, he'll put one on the same block. Oh. And instead of going down to Jerusalem, they'll go to his temple. It was to stem the tide. So it wasn't so much population as it was business, so to speak. Okay, and control. So he has it it turns out that Dan is at the northern limits and Beersheba and Beit El is at the southern limit. All right, now I don't know what his rules and regulations were. Probably the notion of having to, I don't know, did he mandate going to the temples on Sukkot and Pesach and Shavuot, as does the Torah, right? The book of Exodus says clearly, you shall be seen by God on those 3 festivals, right? Did he say the same thing? I don't know. Okay, so anyhow, all right, but that's Beit El. It was real big chutzpah. It's unbelievable. The guts. Amos had a lot of guts, if you think about it. Here you get this guy from the south, walks right in at the temple, starts yelling and screaming at the people. So that's where Yiddish was invented. I can prove it, because what did the people say?
Yeah, weg.
No, darf sein Meshuggah. Should be crazy. Should consider you crazy.
Yeah.
So don't listen to him, Meshuggah. All right. Okay. Now, verse 2. Okay. So now we're going. Then this is again the redactor, right? The other pen at work here. Vayomer. This is what Amos said. Adonai mitzion yishag, u'miyerushalayim yitain kolo, ve'avlu naot haroim, ve'yavesh rosh hakarmel. Okay? Notice, first of all, the structure. 'Tis a poem, isn't it? Adonai, 3 words. Adonai mitzion yishag, u'miyerushalayim yitain kolo. Pause. And it is 2 sub-clauses making up 1 long clause, and it is parallel, repetitious, right? Adonai will roar out of Jerusalem, out of Zion, and from Jerusalem he will shout his voice. Okay? And then it says, Ve'avlu na'ot haroim, and the pastures of the shepherds, will dry up. The Yavesh Rosh HaKarmel, and the top of Mount Carmel will also dry up. That's an allusion to one of the very lush grazing areas in the area of the Carmel. Okay? But you see the repetition. It's a poem. The first words that come out of his mouth is a poem. And this has nothing to do, he's making a general statement here. But clearly one gets the sense, since he's talking about Carmel, right? Notice it doesn't say that God's voice will emanate from Beit El. Couldn't emanate from Beit El, because that's a temple, right? So where does it come from? Jerusalem.
Well, also, is this what people ate?
Huh?
That's symbolic of what people ate, their livelihoods, their very life. And there's an idea that somehow these words are going to cause these things just to dry up, the pastures and
exactly. Yeah, I'm getting there. Exactly, of course. But he himself is a shepherd, so it's something that he can resonate with personally. But look, when you say God yishag, you'll see that word coming up very soon. roar. That verb is used with what animal?
Lion.
A lion, exactly. It's a lion metaphor. So God's going to roar like a lion, right? And raise his voice out of Jerusalem, right? And where is it going to be heard? In the north by Mount Carmel. In other words, the whole area. You know, he's using here generalizations and symbols, right? But Carmel is that whole area there is lush land. It's prime property for shepherds and herdsmen.
Oh yeah.
It's all going to dry up because it's like that. You know, it's like a hamsin that's blowing north from the south, and it's drying everything up. Okay, and these are things that they know, and I mean, it's not just he. People in the north, they know from farming. Farming was at that time, that was how you lived. Well, vast majority of people were farmers and shepherds. So he's talking right to them, isn't he? The guy's a smart guy. Okay, now, so you see then the poetic element of it. And you're going to see more of that as we proceed. All right. Now, what's interesting is the root that is used, Aleph Vet Lamed, okay, in the Ablu. Aleph Vet Lamed is the same word that means to mourn, to grieve.
Evel, sure.
Avel, right. Exactly. Avelut, grief. Avel, the mourner. Okay? So it's interesting. It also means to dry up. Now, is there a relationship between grieving, mourning, and drying up? I'm not sure. I mean, I understand if you wanted to associate that with the deceased, when somebody dies. But to the mourner, I don't know how that translates.
Rabbi, how about mourners cry so much they dehydrate themselves?
I thought of that. I absolutely did. You read my mind, Tybal? What have you been doing?
Well, groupies. After a few classes.
Okay. Yes. No, that's an interesting thought, because people cry a lot when you're in mourning. And, and you cry and you moan and you wail, especially back then. And they were uninhibited. And so it may be that somebody who did that, it's almost all that water is coming out. They're going to dry up from grief. I don't know. I can't answer, but it's really very interesting. And of course, the lion, give me an example whom we know showed his bravery and skill by, he was known for killing lions.
Well, Daniel was in the lion's den, but
Samson.
Was it Samson?
I was going to say Samson was.
Samson.
Yeah, Shimshon Gibor.
What did I just do?
A lariat?
Huh?
A lariat?
No. Slingshot.
David.
Slingshot.
David. 1 Samuel 17, 34-37. He killed lions to save his sheep. Okay? So, I mean, that's...
he could kill a lion with a slingshot. That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, that's why he was able to do... Remember, he didn't kill Goliath. He knocked him out.
Uh-huh.
He had to take his sword and behead him.
Okay.
Kill him. But he definitely won that battle by using that skill. So the lion, again, the whole notion of familiarity with sha'ag, roar like a lion, these people know from those things because their lions were, among the fearful beasts that lived out there in the forest. And so you think of, by the way, when you think of domesticated animals versus wild animals, they had wild animals there who did things that wild animals do. Okay, so we're not talking far-fetched. All right, now, verse 3. How am I? Oh, I still got time. Good. All right. Hey, making progress. We're now going to look at the first of the curses. Okay, the oracle concerning Damascus, Aram Damascus. Okay, here we go. Ko Amar Adonai. Now here is the structure. Al Shlosha Pish'ei Damascus Bel Arba'a Lo Ashivenu. Al Dusham Bachatzrot Habarzel Et Hagilad. Thus said God, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, for 4, I will not revoke the decree, because they threshed Gilead with threshing boards of iron. What's Gilad?
Yeah.
That translation.
Say it louder. Nobody can hear it.
See it? Look at you see it? By my finger.
You tell.
You got it? Gilead, right there. That's the part of the area of the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh, who stayed behind. Were allowed to go into Israel to help conquer, but then go back afterwards and live over there because it was also an area good for shepherding. Okay, so it would be in Jordan today.
Uh-huh.
So when it's saying that it did something nasty to Gilad, that's Israel. That at that moment was part of the kingdom of Israel again. Okay, so this is an attack, a direct attack on that part of the country. All right. So this notion, just as an example of this 3-4 structure, I told you that some of these, you see a lot of these things in Proverbs. So, for example, we find in Proverbs 30, 18 and 21, Shlosha hema naflu mimenu, ve'arba'a lo yedatim. Okay, so 3 fell from him, and 4 I did not know. You've got a 3, 4. Okay, tachat shalosh ragza eretz, the tachat arba lo tuchal se'et. The same thing, 3, 4. So these are part of rhetoric, and it's part of the wisdom traditions of the ancient Near East. This is something else. It's what's called chokhmah traditions. Chokhmah is a neutral term for wisdom. And we know from many sayings in the Torah, not just Torah, in the Bible, that there were parallel statements to things in the Bible, in the literature, in the traditions of other countries. I'm going to give you an example, okay? So again, it's the number of these rhetorical devices. Number 7. So here's one. All right, so this is interesting. The 3rd millennium BCE. That's sometime in the 2000s BCE. That's how ancient what I'm going to read is. These are instructions of Amenemopi, an Egyptian wisdom teacher. And I'm going to compare this with Mishlei, Proverbs 22, 17, etc. All right? Now, here we go. Proverbs was compiled sometime between the 10th century and the 6th century BCE, probably most by around 650. All right? And so they are associated with Shlomo. That's what it says. Mishlei Shlomo ben David Melech Yisrael. All right. So now, this is all with English translation. So Proverbs 23:5. For wealth certainly makes itself wings, like an eagle that flies toward the heavens. And now the Egyptian source from 2500 BCE, they, dishonest riches, make themselves wings like geese and fly to heaven. So in one instance you got geese, in the other instance you got an eagle. But what does wealth do? You fly. Another one. Do not rob the poor because he is poor, or crush the afflicted at the gate. Proverbs 22:22. All right. amenempi. Guard yourself from robbing the poor, from being violent to the weak. Okay? They're not absolutely identical, but they're close enough to see the similarity. All right, so this you see. Now, here's an interesting thing. I'm not going to go into details right now. I have a book. I'll just show it to you. I just got it recently. All right. You see that? Okay. This is an 18th century, the language here, it's printed. I mean, it's a printed book, but it's the language of 18th century England. Okay. So it's got a lot of these and thous and that such. Okay. All right. But it's a translation of a source that ultimately was written in Arabic. There's a source that was written in Arabic, if I'm not mistaken, in the 10th century by a Muslim philosopher who quoted sayings of the philosophers, all right, and identified them by name. I was reading it once in translation that I can understand, and it struck me. I took that, I was teaching a class at Ziegler School, okay? It was a history class, and we were learning about, the philosophical developments of the Muslims in the Middle Ages, all right, the great philosophers. So this book was called, that book, it was the same book. Anyway, so I read it to them. I selected certain passages, and they were, so-and-so said, whatever it was. And I said, where is this from? And you know what they told me? Guess they all said the same thing. Pirkei Avot, Masechet, Tractate Avot, and the Mishnah, sayings of wisdom. I guarantee you that Muslim philosopher in the Middle Ages did not read Pirkei Avot. The point is, and the Chazal, the rabbis that are mentioned there, did not study philosophy and know the Greek philosophers who lived centuries before them. But apparently what it indicates, and I discussed this actually with a friend. Remember, Kaplan he was a professor of philosophy at a professor of classics at UCLA. And he davened in shul regularly at Beth Am. All right. Anyway, I read this to Professor Kaplan, and he said, that's unbelievable. Okay, because he recognized some of the names there, but he knew what I was talking about. And that's the point. That's all wisdoms, what's called wisdom stuff. These wisdom traditions, practical things to say, ethical things, whatever they might be, they spread all over the place. I mean, you saw that just now, right? The book of Proverbs citing, was making statements of wisdom that are not too far off from a guy who wrote it 2,000 years beforehand. That's chokhmah. And a lot of the point here is that's part that feeds into a lot of the things that you're going to hear in the prophet Amos in the middle of the 8th century. Those things were spinning around at that time. Okay, so it's today. We talk about social media, right? And how things are spread all over the world. Yes? No. Ein shum chadash tachat hashemesh. Ain't nothing new under the sun. We just do it quicker and maybe less responsibly, but everybody does it. No. Been going on for thousands. Okay, Tybal.
So the way you just laid that out, at least for me, so there's 7, and it includes both the southern and northern kingdom. That makes Amos sound to me like a very universal prophet.
Yeah. These
like all human beings do this. It's all these people. It's all of you. Blah blah blah. Don't think I'm singling you out.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the point. There are these ideas that, for whatever reason, catch on. And they become universal in their existence. And I can't tell you who was the first, but the fact that you've got 2,600, from approximately 2,500 BCE being cited in the Torah, You know, I mean, in the Bible, it's not Torah, in the book of Proverbs. It's unbelievable. So that's the way things were. So Amos is part of this kind of tradition. All right. So, this is aimed at Aram Damascus. Now, Aram Damascus, Damascus was the capital of the Aramean kingdom. We saw that up north, remember? Now, we know, for example, that King Hazael, who ruled the second half of the 9th century, in other words, in the late 800s, conquered Gilad. It refers to that in Malachim Bet in 2 Kings chapter 10. Okay? And so, whether this is what he's talking about or not, but the point is, that's an example of how many of these areas on the periphery of Eretz Yisrael would from time to time fall out of control of the Israelites. Okay? And that's an example of that. But that's probably the king with regarding whom, remember, after Eliyahu has his theophany, he says, you go to the king of Aram and tell him that he's going to be the guy to kill Ahab. Okay, because the Aramean kings up here would often make war against the northern kingdom. And it turns out one of those guys is the guy, one of his armies killed Ahab, the bad king. Okay, so that's a good example. All right, but then it says the following. It says, the Hebrew, arba, excuse me, lo ashivenu. I will not retract it. Heshiv means to give or to take back. So it means I won't revoke or retract or rescind, referring to the punishment. Okay? And it's interesting, of course, that the root here meaning will not revoke, I will not retract something, is the same root as teshuvah. What's teshuvah in terms of doing something bad? Repentance, which results in changing the consequence. So what struck me here is that they're polar opposites. Here I will not change what's been decreed, and here I will change what's decreed, right? So it's like tshuva, tefillah, tzedakah, ma'avirin, et roah hagzera, right? Those three things, tshuva, repentance, tefillah, prayer, and righteousness, will moderate or mitigate the evil of the decree. It'll make a change in it. That's what it says in the Machzor, right? Okay, so it just that struck me as just an odd kind of an association. All right, now this notion then, what is this threshing? The boards of iron. You thresh grain to separate the grains from the chaff, right? That's the threshing. But here it's not talking about that. This is violent use of these tools to riddle it. It's a metaphor for literally using iron tools to tear Gilad apart, which means to utterly destroy it. Utterly destroy. And so again, here, Amos is using a statement, a description of what they did in a way that they understand. They know what threshing material, what threshing machines can do to grains. And that's a positive thing, right? Separates the grains from the chaff. Good. But now he's saying, now take that image, expand it, and imagine what would happen if this is the same approach that you take to the whole countryside. You're threshing it to death. It means utterly destroying. And for that, there will be punishment. And I'll finish it up in just a second with the final statement here. All right. Go ahead. Yes, Tybal. And then.
So would another association be why David wasn't allowed to build the temple because he used iron too much in war?
I don't know. It doesn't expressly say, does it?
No, I wouldn't.
He had blood on his hands.
No, I wouldn't think so, because I think the association was war, that he couldn't, because he had gone to war.
Yeah.
Couldn't build the.
And I thought though that was the linkage why iron couldn't be used in building the temple because David used it too much.
Yeah, no, that was that not necessarily David's sword. It was the whole notion of metal, a sword, a sharp metal implement
Right.
to cut the stones. That's the point.
Yeah.
I don't know, but with David, remember, you go to war, it's not just a sword, it's blood.
Right.
It's almost as if a person who makes war, the rabbis tell us that, the whole notion is the Mizbeach, the temple, is supposed to be a place of peace. It's supposed to be something that creates peace between God and people. So you don't want implements of war being used in a general sense. Okay, so we don't know for sure. The Bible does not make that association directly, as far as I know. You can check me on it, Tybal, if you will. Not now. Check me on that and see. I don't believe it makes that expressly. If it does, tell me where, and I will correct myself. But I always view that as a more general statement. But you're right in the sense that the notion that the stones had to be uncut stones is because it begins the notion with the altar itself. I mean, the ancient altars that you find in different places, many of them, some of them are cut, and you will see that in many instances they were made of cut stone eventually, but the real intent was they shouldn't be. I know the altar that I saw in Arad, in that temple in the fortress at Arad, the stones were all rough stones. They were uncut. It's a huge stone altar. Okay, uncut stones, and the whole notion was metal is war and death and enmity. The temple stands and the Mizbeach stands for creating peace between God and. Okay, Bert.
Maybe this is also a rabbinic take on this, but perhaps it's the idea that if the stones were hewn and they were very beautiful, that the stones would be worshipped instead of God, if they were made to be very beautiful. But the other thing that struck me, unless I'm missing it here, is it almost never says what the transgressions were, or does that come later? This is just destruction.
The transgression was the way they destroyed Gilad.
Okay. So this is retribution.
Yeah.
This is not. It says there were so it's 3 transgressions in destroying Gilead.
But all that means that's a rhetorical statement.
Okay.
Right. What that is saying is, I'm, for 4, I'm not going to forgive. In other words, saying it is definite that I'm not going to forgive.
Okay. So these are not moral transgressions.
No, they're rhetorical.
Isaiah.
No. Here, the sin was what they did to Gilad.
Got it. Okay, that's
that, and that's in all of them. That's what happened.
We haven't yet gotten to love your neighbor or any of that kind of stuff.
No, that's not here. All right, final.
Rabbi,
so what is God going to do?
I have a question.
Who's that?
David.
Hello.
Hi. You started by saying on Shlosha Pish'ei Israel ve'al Arba'a lo Hashivenu, the 3 and 4, 7, you said, correct?
No.
So I read it as literally. It said al Shlosha, on 3 transgressions I may forgive you, but on the 4th I may not. Like 3 strikes and you're out. So right. I don't think anything to do with. What do you think? I take.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that I will forgive. See, I think that the way it's understood is, for 3, you're going to get a punishment. For 4, forget it.
I see.
Not clear. It's a matter of, it's the same notion of building the impact of the consequence. The impact of the consequence, okay? And I understand at first I was reading it that way too. I might forgive you for 3, but for 4, definitely not. Yeah. It could be, and it may be, but generally the way I understood from the way the scholars deal with that, it is more of a notion of 3 is bad enough, 4, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, but it may be that there's a glimmer of hope with 3. I don't know.
It's like,
Fortunately, it's just too brief.
Yeah,
but the point is, you'll see each one of these things. It doesn't. Then he doesn't enumerate sins here, right? The point that Bert made is he doesn't list all the sins. It is a biggie, right? It's the basically there's one sin, right? So the 3-4 structure is a rhetorical structure for impact. And it's almost like saying, what you did is equivalent to a whole bunch of sins, and I'm not going to forgive. That I think is how we have to. That's why it's just rhetorical. It's not. You're saying something more logical, right? And I understand it makes sense, but this is not necessarily. It's a jump in logic to the notion that it's like in Hebrew, kol shekain. Im ani enosh l'shalosh, kol shekain la'arba. I think that's how it's always struck in my head, right? If you think I'm going to punish for 3, 4, you have no idea. I think that's really what it stands. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, but now what is he going to do? Verse 4. V'shilachti eish beveit Chazael v'achla Armanot ben Hadad. Okay? Excuse me. I will send fire to the house of Chazael, and it shall eat the, it says fortresses of Ben Hadad. Okay, and again, poetic. All right?
Aren't we already?
Poetic.
It's 4.
But it's the point that I'm trying to make here is that Chazael is this king, right? Well, there's a number of Chazaels, so it's not clear which one he's talking about here, right? It really isn't clear. But that's neither here nor there. But and by the way, Armon, it's interesting. There is a more recent interpretation of it as not being a fortress, but a fortified palace.
A palace, an Armon. Yeah.
Palace, yeah. And if the parallel here, remember, Beit Chazael is the house of Chazael, and the Armon is paralleling the house. You don't live in a fortress, right? A fortress is a place where you defend militarily. And so Armon, that's why the more contemporary interpretation of that it means a fortified house where you live.
Is Chazael the king of Damascus or not?
There were a number of Chazaels, yes, of Aram.
But is he referring to the king of Damascus in this case?
So I didn't say this again.
I said, is Chazael in this context the king of Damascus?
Yes. Damascus is the capital city of Aram.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, Bruchim to you. Now you see why this goes so slowly.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.